Hi, this is Harish here. Welcome to DB2 LUW Tips and Tricks video tutorial part 117. In this video tutorial, I'm going to talk about what is the difference between standby and mirror options in the command DB2INIDB. The scripts and data files that I'm using are freely available for download at db2luwacademy.blogspot.in. This slide talks about the problem scenario. The problem scenario is we want to figure out what is the difference between the standby and the mirror option in the DB2INIDB command. This command is used for initialization of the database after you restore a file system snapshot. So if you are taking, instead of your regular DB2 backup commands and restore commands, so if you are trying to take the backup of the database, there are two ways. So one is your regular DB2 backup commands. If you don't want to use that, you can also take a file system level snapshot called a snapshot backup. So if you use a snapshot backup and let's say your database has crashed or something, so you can revert at the file system level to the previous snapshot, and you need to initialize the database. So that's where this inidb command comes into the picture. And this command has three options. The option clone is pretty clear. So what it will do is it will do a crash recovery for you. So when you recover the database from the snapshot, it will recover to the snapshot time. So if you, like for example, took the file system snapshot at T1, then the clone option will recover all those transactions up to T1. So you will get basically all the committed transactions at T1 during that time the snapshot was taken, and that is the clone option. That is very clear. So it is like more like a you cannot roll forward using this clone option. So you cannot apply further logs and go to a point in time which is later than your snapshot time. So that is the option clone, which is very clear. Now what I'm not able to understand is the difference between the standby option and the mirror option. Now I'll talk about the similarities between the options. So both the let's say you have the file system snapshot of the database and you have applied that on to the server, and what you want to do is now initialize the database, and whether you use standby option or you use mirror option, both will initialize the database, and it will put the database in the roll forward pending state, and you can take a backup if required at this point. So this particular backup is done basically to offload the impact of the backup on the production. So let's say if you're having a production database and you don't want to initiate a backup, online backup on the production database, so what you can do, take a file system snapshot, take this snapshot, apply it physically onto the another server, and initialize the database as a mirror, right? And then you can take the backup. So which is like, offloading the work done by the backup command from the production server to the different server. That is the purpose. So whether I use a standby option or whether I use mirror option, both works the same way. And after that you can apply the logs and you can apply to some point in time or to end of logs and complete. So once you complete, it will open up the database for external connections, and you can also observe the change in the log chain ID. So if there is a change in log chain ID, obviously the significance is you cannot take a backup of this database and go back to the source database and try to apply those log files. Like the log chain ID should be same when you do the roll forward. So that's the important thing. So that's the significant thing. So it will change the log chain ID. Okay. Now I have done few test cases. So these are, whether I use the standby or whether I use the mirror, all these steps are done the same. So I'm not able to figure out what is the difference between them, right? Obviously there is a ACS option in the standby. So I think I'll not go with the ACS option because it is related to some advanced copy services. So but then you can also say mirror ACS, right? Why did you need a separate option for that? So that part I'm not able to understand. Okay, so I did few test cases. So this is the test case 1. So here we are talking about a non-HADR standard database. You create a recoverable database, add few transactions, suspend the IO, take a snapshot of the database at the file system or OS level. Like you will be taking the snapshot of the containers, SQL DB2 log directories, database directories, container files, log files, and what else I'm missing, storage paths, all those container files again. So it's like that. So you take all those things, and after that you resume the IO and add few more transactions. Now let's say you deactivate the database, or some error occurred in the database, so you forcefully deactivated it, or the instance crashed, or whatever has happened. It's not you are now going to do some kind of a recovery scenario. So, and the database is not recovering by itself. So what we can do is we took the snapshot at step 3, right? So we can apply that file system snapshot and initialize the database using the DB2INIDB command. So when I do that, I have now two options. Either I can use standby or I can use mirror. I have tried both ways. So whether I use standby or whether I use mirror, after that command, I can roll forward the database to end of logs, because obviously the archive log files are there. So I can roll forward to end of logs and complete it, and obviously the log chain ID will change, and the database is also open, and I can connect to the database, and I can see that all the recovered transactions until step 4, which is after the snapshot time, right? Sorry. So those things are recovered and it's available. So we have done the recovery of the database using the OS level file system snapshot. So the point is, whether you use standby or whether you use mirror, it gives me the same functionality. The test case is a pass. Okay, now let's go to the second test case. So in this second test case, I have a HADR setup with primary and standby, obviously in peer state and all running smoothly. Now what I'm going to do here is take the snapshot of the primary at some point of time and use that snapshot to apply it onto the standby machine for initialization or reinitialization. So let's say I have all the setup up and running. So I add few transactions into the primary, suspend the IO, take the snapshot of the database at file system level, resume the IO, add few more transactions in primary, and obviously that will get replicated in the standby. Now you deactivate the standby and you apply the file system snapshot of the primary onto the standby server. So please note the change. You are applying the file system snapshot of primary onto the standby server, and you can initialize the database. Whether you initialize it as a standby or you initialize it as mirror, it doesn't matter. Roll forward to end of logs. Do not complete. Like, don't say roll forward complete, because it will open up the database. We don't want to do that because it is a standby database. So keep it in the roll forward pending state. Start the HADR as standby. You will see that the HADR pair eventually handshakes and all and gets into the peer state. Okay, now the test case 3. So in this test case 3, what I'm going to do is the same thing, but a little change where I'm having this primary and standby, everything is running, transactions are running, suspend the IO, take the database snapshot, file system level snapshot of the primary, and resume the IO, add more transactions, deactivate the primary, apply the file system snapshot of the primary on the primary server itself. Okay, not in standby. Apply the file system snapshot of the primary in the primary server itself. So the standby is still up and running, but what happens is, in the primary side I have done a recovery operation. Okay, now once that is done, you can initialize the database. Again, you can initialize it as standby or mirror, it doesn't matter. Roll forward the database to end of logs and complete it, because it has to be a connectable database, so you have to complete it and start HADR as primary. It will start the HADR and it will be in a different log chain, and the standby will be in a different log chain. On the fly, the standby gets the log chain changed, and the HADR pair will eventually get into peer state. That is also happening. So whether you use the standby option or whether you use the mirror option, again this test case also is a pass. So after all these test cases, I'm not able to understand definitely one thing. So what is the difference between standby and the mirror option in the INIDB? So obviously I don't have an answer for that question. So but I have my reckonings. So I have no affiliation with IBM. This is a disclaimer. So I have no affiliation with IBM. I have no access to their internal documentation. Based on these test cases and various other readings and participating in forums and other things. All I can just conclude is the option mirror is actually an old option used before the HDR feature was available. It would be no surprise for me if IBM deprecates this particular mirror option in later releases. If you remember, there is also like there was a name change for consistency, right? The upgrade versus migrate, right? The migrate command was there for migrating between releases, like from 9.7 to 10.5, like that. The command was migrate, but I mean in older times it was migrate, but now they have changed to upgrade, right? They have deprecated the migrate command and they have provided us the upgrade command. It's functionally the same command, right? So it's just that the name makes more sense, right? So sometimes they do changes like that. So I think probably this is one kind of a change, like the standby name fits better than calling it as mirror, right? So maybe they called it as mirror during the times the HDR feature was not there at all, but then now the HDR feature is there, so it makes more sense to you call the name as standby. I think that is what is occurring, but I'm not really very sure, 100% sure on that. Even I have not checked whether the mirror option is already deprecated, so I don't think it is deprecated, but you never know. So I mean, at least I never know. So that is the discussion that I wanted to have in this video session. Hopefully this information was useful to you, and also I am waiting on inputs and any comments. So if somebody can tell, hey, this is incorrect, so under this scenario this makes sense, and this is the exact difference between these two commands, please provide your inputs or comments in the YouTube page. It is available in youtube.com/db2INIDB academy. Please subscribe to my channel if you are seeing this video for the first time, and thanks for subscribing. Existing users, thanks for subscribing, and also thanks for watching this video. Hope this information was useful to you. See you in the next video tutorial. Until then, bye bye.